40 Filipino soldiers were ordered by the UN, United Nations, to surrender. They were surrounded by 100 Syrians, but the Filipino soldiers said no. This is a true story who inspired the world and show us the Filipino spirit and the Filipino courage, how beautiful it is. Let's watch this.
August 2014. The Golan Heights, one of the most volatile borders on the face of the earth. A narrow strip of rocky terrain separating Israel from the absolute chaos of the Syrian civil war. For decades, the United Nations has maintained a peacekeeping force here. Soldiers from around the world wearing bright blue helmets, driving white trucks, armed with rifles, but carrying a mandate of observation, not combat. They are not supposed to fight. On August 28th, the war doesn't care what they are supposed to do. Over 100 heavily armed fighters from al-Nusra Front, Al-Qaeda's primary affiliate in Syria, storm through the Quneitra border crossing. These are not disorganized militiamen. These are hardened fighters who have just overrun Syrian army bases, seizing heavy machine guns, vehicle-mounted anti-aircraft cannons, and armored trucks. Their first target, a United Nations camp held by 44 peacekeepers from Fiji. The Fijians, following UN de-escalation protocols, surrender their weapons. Within minutes, 44 blue helmets are loaded into trucks and driven deep into the Syrian desert as hostages. Then the rebels turn their eyes toward Position 68. Inside Position 68 are 40 soldiers from the armed forces of the Philippines. The rebels surround the camp. They park their stolen trucks, the ones with the anti-aircraft guns, directly outside the gates. They send a man to the fence with a megaphone. Hand over your weapons, surrender the outpost, walk away alive. The Filipinos radio their UN force commander, an Indian lieutenant general named Iqbal Singh Singha, stationed miles away in a secure position. They report what is happening. They wait for orders. The UN commander issues a direct, official order to the Philippine troops. Stand down. Surrender your weapons. Do not shoot. This is the moment. You are a soldier in a foreign land. An Al-Qaeda affiliate has your position surrounded with vehicle-mounted cannons capable of leveling your bunkers in seconds. The highest-ranking general in the UN command has just ordered you to hand over your M4 and your ammunition to the men outside your gate. If you obey, you hand your life to terrorists who have a documented history of executing prisoners on camera. If you disobey, you are in open mutiny against the international community on a global stage. The 40 Filipinos look at the guns outside their gates. They listen to the order on the radio. Then they make a decision. They refuse. They lock and load their rifles.
Guys, I don't know about you. I have tears in my eyes. I don't know why. Okay, and shivers all over the place. I mean, how is this possible to be able to have that kind of courage, that kind of loyalty, and say no? It's something outstanding. I did this channel because I fell in love with the Philippine people and courage and everything, but I get still amazed with every damn video because it's so beautiful. And look, at least I'm talking for me, a lot of us in the world, in Europe, whatever, I didn't know about this story. And a lot of people don't. And it's a shame because it's something that the world should know and should learn from the Philippine soldier, people, civilians, whatever they are, in whatever kind, war or singing or cooking or living or just being a human being. Just wow.
They take up positions along the sandbags, and they tell the al-Nusra Front, "You are not getting these weapons." This is the story of the Golan Heights standoff, how 40 Filipino soldiers defied the United Nations, fought an al-Qaeda affiliate for 7 straight hours, escaped through enemy lines at midnight, and walked out of a war zone without losing a single man.
Incredible.
To understand
My God.
why the Filipinos refused, why that order triggered something beyond military calculation, you have to understand what a Philippine soldier is taught from day one of training. Your rifle is your life. Your rifle is your honor. In the armed forces of the Philippines, surrendering your weapon without firing a shot is not a doctrine. It is the opposite of one. Filipino soldiers have spent decades fighting domestic insurgencies, the Hooks, the Communist NPA, Abu Sayyaf, the MILF, in the jungles of Mindanao and the mountains of Luzon. They have learned a truth that cannot be taught in a classroom. Surrendering your weapon to a terrorist does not buy you safety. It buys your execution. Back in Manila, General Gregorio Pio Katapang Jr., Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, was monitoring the standoff in real time. When he heard the UN order to surrender, he was furious. He knew al-Nusra Front. He knew the Syrian civil war. He sent an immediate counter-order directly to his men on the ground, bypassing the UN command entirely. Do not surrender your firearms. Defend your positions. The 40 men at Position 68 were now caught between 2 chains of command. The UN said surrender. Manila said hold. They were branded as mutineers by the UN force commander before the first shot was fired. Colonel Ezra Enriquez, overall commander of the Philippine UNDOF contingent, backed his men completely. He demanded that the UN force commander put the surrender order in writing. Singha refused. Enriquez later resigned his post as UNDOF's 4th-ranking officer, the only resignation in the history of the mission, and said publicly, "I have been in the military service for 30 years and never defied tactical, operational, or administrative orders from my superiors until that standoff in Position 68. I made the right decision." For 2 days, August 28th and 29th, the standoff held without a shot being fired. The rebels paraded their weapons outside the gates. They sent intermediaries. The UN continued to apply pressure on the Filipinos to comply, and the Filipinos continued to say no. Let's be precise about what they were facing. Position 68 was not a fortress. It was a small UN observation post, a few concrete bunkers, sandbagged positions, a perimeter fence. The 40 Filipino peacekeepers inside had M4 carbines, a handful of M60 light machine guns, and a limited ammunition supply. They had no artillery, no air support, no tanks, and no reinforcements coming.
And outside, there were like
Outside
100.
the gate, the al-Nusra Front had over 100 fighters. They also had vehicle-mounted anti-aircraft guns, weapons designed to destroy military aircraft. Pointed at a concrete bunker, they would reduce it to dust in seconds. On the morning of August 30, the psychological war ends. The rebels have waited long enough. At 6 a.m., 3 pickup trucks ram the gates of Position 68. The trucks have heavy machine guns mounted in the back. They open fire. What follows is not the desperate, confused shooting of men caught by surprise. What follows is 7 hours of disciplined, controlled combat,
Incredible.
executed by a force that knew this moment might come and prepared for it. The 40 Filipinos returned fire with precision. They do not spray wildly. Their M4 marksmen engage specific targets, methodically, professionally, the way men fight when they have been trained to fight and have decided that this is the hill. The M60 machine gun teams lay down suppressive fire that stops every charge before it reaches the gate. The rebels, who had expected the blue helmets to panic and collapse, cannot understand what they are dealing with. Every attempted breach is stopped. Every assault is broken. The Filipinos absorb mortar fire, machine gun fire, and vehicle assault, and they hold. 7 hours, 100+ attackers, 40 defenders, 0 Filipino casualties.
I have on the channel the way Filipino train, and I'm talking about Scout Ranger. Before you say in the comments that I should see, I watch it. I have it on the channel. It's a training that I never saw in my whole life. It's so hard, but man, I mean, if you have a Filipino soldier next to you, you can conquer the world. You know, it's like, it's incredible and so beautiful, guys. And I hope with my help and other reactors, we can get this story out and other amazing, beautiful stories, you know, because the world should know about this. Wow.
But as the sun begins to set, the math becomes undeniable. Ammunition is not infinite. After 7 hours of sustained combat, the Filipinos are burning through their magazines. They are a peacekeeping unit, not stocked for a multi-day siege. The commanders look at what remains and reach a conclusion. They cannot survive another assault at this rate. The United Nations is not sending relief. The Syrian army, which had fired artillery at the rebels at one point to help relieve pressure on the Filipinos, is fighting its own war. The closest friendly forces are miles away across mined, treacherous terrain. There is one option left. They have to disappear. This is the part of the story that military analysts still study. The plan was born from the collision of desperation and tactical discipline. They could not fight their way out, not enough bullets. They could not drive their white UN vehicles out. The engine noise would be heard for miles, and the anti-aircraft guns outside would shred the trucks before they cleared the perimeter. They had to walk, at midnight, through the rebel positions, in complete silence. As the evening wore on and a ceasefire was negotiated, not a surrender, a temporary halt to allow for talks, the rebels settled in around the camp. They were confident. The Filipinos were trapped, outnumbered, running low. They would be there in the morning. At exactly midnight, the 40 Filipinos unlatched the rear gate of Position 68. They had stripped down to essentials: no heavy body armor, no helmets, no personal gear, just their weapons, their remaining ammunition, and water. Everything that could clink, rattle, or catch the light had been left behind or bound down. They stepped out into a freezing desert night. The terrain of the Golan Heights is a tactical nightmare even in daylight, rocky, uneven, treacherous in the dark. And beneath the surface of this particular ground, decades of landmines from the 1967 and 1973 Arab-Israeli wars. One wrong step. The 40 men moved in single file, one behind the other, each man stepping exactly where the man in front had stepped. No one spoke. All communication was hand signals in the darkness. They could see the campfires of the rebel positions around them. They could hear voices in Arabic in the dark. For an hour and 40 minutes, they walked. They navigated 2 kilometers of mined, rebel-surrounded no-man's land in the dark, moving through the gaps between insurgent positions, staying to the lowest ground to avoid silhouetting against the sky, moving at the pace of men who understand that silence is the difference between living and dying. At no point did a single rebel see them. By the time the Al-Nusra Front realized Position 68 had been abandoned, the 40 Filipinos were already at Camp Ziwani, safely behind UN lines, weapons in hand, every single man accounted for. When the rebels kicked down the gates at dawn, they found an empty camp. The 40 Filipinos had vanished into thin air. General Katapong, standing at a press conference in Manila the morning of August 31st, did not hide his pride. Although they were surrounded and outnumbered, they held their ground for 7 hours, he said. We may call it the greatest escape. The UN force commander demanded that Colonel Enriquez be court-martialed for insubordination.
Really?
The UN publicly denied that any surrender order had ever been given, a position directly contradicted by the Philippine military's documented account of events. The UN's insistence on this position, while the Filipino soldiers who were present maintained otherwise, became one of the most damaging credibility disputes in the history of the peacekeeping mission. The Philippine government stood completely behind its troops. No one was punished. Colonel Enriquez resigned rather than serve under the commander who had ordered his men to hand their weapons to Al-Qaeda, and was welcomed home as a man of principle. A few weeks later, the 44 Fijian hostages were released, alive and unharmed, proving that the Philippine refusal to surrender had not endangered them, exactly as the Philippine commanders had argued. The entire 331-person Philippine contingent completed their tour of duty and returned home in October 2014, on schedule. Not a single Philippine peacekeeper in the Golan Heights died. The Golan Heights standoff is taught in military academies. It is studied in peacekeeping doctrine reviews. It is cited in discussions about the limits of institutional command authority when it collides with the survival instinct of the men on the ground. But beyond the strategy, beyond the doctrine, beyond the geopolitics of it, there is the simpler, older story. 40 men, a gate, a choice. The entire international apparatus of the United Nations, one of the most powerful institutional entities on Earth, issued a direct order to 40 Filipino soldiers. An order backed by rank, by protocol, by the argument that compliance was the rational, safe, survivable choice. And 40 Filipino soldiers looked at that order, looked at the men outside their gate, and said, no. Not out of recklessness, not out of arrogance, out of a clarity that only comes to people who have been trained to understand that there are some things you do not give away. That a rifle in the hands of a soldier is not just a weapon, it is the final guarantee of his own dignity. That the man who disarms you is not your protector, he is your captor. They defied the United Nations. They held the line for 7 hours. They walked out through the dark, and they brought every single man home. That is what Filipino soldiers do.
Just incredible, guys. I don't know if you knew about this story. If you didn't, like me, I hope you enjoy it because it's something really beautiful and outstanding about Filipino people, courage, soldiers, heart, and so on. Beautifully done. It's the whole. I hope other people from other countries will see this and will say, "Wow, really? Yeah." And if you're, not knowing about the Philippines Army, how they are, you should watch the channel because there are a lot of other videos with this. Just beautiful. The Philippines is beautiful. The Filipino people are beautiful. So yeah, it's incredible. Incredible. Just wow. And like I was saying about the country Philippines, I have another channel that I just opened about traveling. And if you go there, you'll see something not only about myself, vlogs behind the YouTuber, but as well traveling to some amazing places from the Philippines, actually. Hidden places in the Philippines. It will be uploaded on that channel. You can find the link in the description if you want to go and check that out. Beautifully done. Let me know what you think down below and how proud you are to be a Filipino. You should. I'm proud to be a Filipino by heart. So yeah. Anyways, thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. God bless the Philippines and stay safe.